Dr. Jeff Barrett sighed, dragging a hand across his damp forehead. He glared at the flickering inventory display. Just as he expected, the remote outpost on Nexus 7 was critically low on supplies. It was the chronic story of his deployment. 3 months into his tour with the Terran Allied Forces Medical Corps, and he was already fantasizing about his rotation home. His combat armor felt oppressive in the medical facility's humidity. It was standard protocol for all military staff to stay battle-ready, even on a supposedly peaceful outpost like this one. The fresh cut on his cheek, a memento from an emergency mine collapse evacuation, gave a small, sharp sting. "Useless bureaucrats," he mumbled, his fingers scrolling angrily down the list. "We're at half strength for antibiotics. And the tissue regenerator is still offline with no replacement parts." At 34, Jeff's piercing blue eyes had already witnessed too much in his 12 years of service. His short, light brown hair was damp with sweat, and his muscular build was evident even under the dark green armor. A product of relentless military discipline, the outpost was quiet, filled only with the low hum of medical equipment and the occasional chirp from the comms console. At least there were no emergencies. He'd had enough chaos this week to last a month. Boredom finally pushed him out of the sterile med bay and into the open air. The alien landscape of Nexus 7 had a strange, haunting beauty. The vegetation was a deep shade of purple, all under a sky that was a permanent, soft amber. The outpost itself was built on a small rise, looking down on a valley settlement that blended human prefab structures with the more organic, flowing architecture of the Lirani, the planet's native humanoid inhabitants. A bright, cheerful laugh sliced through his brooding. He looked toward the small yard beside the med bay and saw a young Lirani girl playing. She couldn't have been older than 7 in human terms, with the delicate features and characteristic pale blue skin of her people. Her long, light-colored hair was woven into intricate plaits that bounced as she jumped. She wore a simple beige dress with yellow ruffles, a perfect match for her sunny disposition. "Greetings, human man," she called, her wave full of energy. "Are you the doctor?" Jeff couldn't help but smile. "That's me. I'm Dr. Barrett. And who are you?" "I am Asira," she announced, skipping over to him. Her eyes, large and iridescent like all Lirani, examined him with bold curiosity. "What happened to your face?" "Just a scratch," he replied, his hand instinctively going to the cut. "It's nothing serious. My father told me humans are very breakable," she said, as if stating a simple fact. "But you don't look breakable. You look strong." Jeff chuckled. "We have our strong points and our weak points, just like everyone." Asira pointed a small blue finger at the medical building. "What kinds of machines are in there? Do they fix people?" "Some of them do, yes." Her eyes went wide with sudden excitement. "Human man, can you show me, please? I want to be a healer when I grow up." Her raw enthusiasm reminded Jeff so much of his niece back on Earth that his professional defenses melted. "Well," he said, "I suppose I could show you a few things. Nothing dangerous, of course." Inside the facility, Asira was a whirlwind of wonder, pointing at every piece of equipment and burying him in an avalanche of questions. Her curiosity was a refreshing change from the grumpy soldiers and weary miners he usually treated. "This," Jeff explained, holding up a handheld device, "is a medical scanner. It can look inside your body without causing any pain." "Can you scan me?" Asira asked, her eyes shining. "I want to see what my insides look like." "Of course. It's completely harmless." Jeff smiled and activated the device, a routine he had performed thousands of times. The holographic display shimmered and then solidified, showing a 3-dimensional, detailed image of Asira's internal structure. Jeff's smile vanished. He froze. The scanner showed him the truth her bright personality concealed. Her small frame was a horrifying atlas of healed injuries. He saw old fractures in her ribs, lines spiderwebbing across the bone. Her left arm had been broken in at least 3 different places. Widespread internal scarring hinted at severe past trauma to several of her organs. This wasn't a series of childhood accidents. This was methodical, intentional harm. It was the kind of pattern Jeff had been trained to recognize in war zones, the unmistakable signature of systemic abuse. "See, human man? I'm perfectly healthy," Asira chirped, completely unaware of the image that had stolen his voice. She pointed at the hologram. "Is that my heart? It's so pretty and blue." Jeff had to force himself to swallow, to rebuild his professional mask. "Yes," he said, his voice thick. "That's your heart. It looks very strong." As Asira continued to chatter away about becoming a healer, a cold, dark fury began to build in Jeff's chest. Someone had hurt this little girl, repeatedly, severely, and that person was still out there, likely in the settlement just down the hill. "Asira," he asked, keeping his voice as gentle as he could, "who do you live with?" "My guardian Torin," she replied. "He looks after lots of children whose parents went away." An orphanage, Jeff thought. He filed the name Torin away. "He says I'm special," she added, beaming with pride, "because I heal faster than the other children." Jeff felt a wave of nausea. Faster healing. It meant the abuser could be more frequent, more violent, without the injuries raising external suspicion. "Well," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady, "you are definitely special, Asira. Would you like to visit again tomorrow? I could teach you more about being a healer." Her face lit up the room. "Really? Yes. I'd love to." A few minutes later, as he watched her skip back toward the settlement, Jeff's hand clenched into a white-knuckled fist. In his 12 years, he'd seen the worst that humans and other species were capable of. But this was different. This was personal. He turned and strode back into the medbay, activating his comm unit. "Command, this is Dr. Barrett at Outpost Nexus 7. I need to request all information on local child protection protocols. And I need to know the extent of military medical authority in civilian matters." The bureaucratic nightmare he was about to unleash didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was that little girl, with her blinding smile and her terrible, hidden scars. Dr. Jeff Barrett had just found a new mission. The next morning, Jeff sat in his office, his frustration mounting as he stared at the terminal. He had spent the entire night trying to navigate the complex web of colonial regulations for child welfare on Nexus 7, access denied. The words flashed on the screen for the 4th time. Military personnel require Level 4 clearance for civilian welfare records. Son of a... Jeff slammed his fist on the desk, cutting off the curse. He was being blocked at every turn. The message from the local authorities was clear. Military doctors needed to stay in their own lane and treat. Military personnel. His comm unit buzzed, startling him. "Dr. Barrett," a stern, familiar voice came through. It was Colonel Harrington. "I've been informed you're conducting inquiries into local civilian affairs." Jeff sat up straight. "Yes, sir. I have strong concerns about a potential child abuse case involving a local Lirani child. Doctor, let me be clear, we are guests on this world. The Lirani possess their own culture and their own laws. It is not our place to enforce Terran morals on their society. With all due respect, sir, abuse is abuse. No matter the culture." "That's where you are mistaken, Barrett. The definition of abuse varies. The Lirani skeletal structure is famously resilient. What might look like severe trauma to a human doctor could be within normal parameters for their development." Jeff felt his anger spike. "Sir, I've studied xenophysiology. These injuries are deliberate and severe by any standard. I am not telling you to ignore it," the colonel's voice hardened. "I am telling you to follow the proper channels. Submit a formal report to the Colonial Liaison Office." They will investigate if they deem it warranted. And how long will that take, sir? Jeff asked, already knowing the answer. As long as it takes to respect diplomatic protocol. That is an order, Doctor. Stay in your lane. The connection cut, leaving Jeff seething in the silence. Proper channels could take weeks, months. What more could happen to Asira in that time? A soft knock on his door broke his train of thought. He looked up to see Nurse Caldwell, her expression worried. Dr. Barrett, there's a Lirani child in exam room 2. She's asking for you by name. Jeff's heart dropped. Asira. Caldwell nodded. She seems off today. Not her usual bubbly self. Dread coiled in Jeff's stomach as he hurried to the exam room. Asira was sitting on the edge of the bio bed. Her usual bright energy was gone. She was wearing a long-sleeved tunic, despite the facility's warm temperature, and she kept her eyes fixed on the floor. "Hello, Asira," Jeff said gently. "I'm happy you came back." She offered him a small, weak smile. "You promised you'd teach me more about healing." "I did," he said, approaching her slowly. He noticed she winced when she shifted her weight. "Are you feeling all right today?" "I fell down the stairs," she said. The words sounded rehearsed, hollow. "Torrin says I'm too clumsy." Jeff kept his face a neutral mask, hiding the inferno of rage inside him. "Mind if I take a look?" Doctors should always check on falls, just to be safe. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Will you use the light machine again? If that's all right with you." As he prepped the scanner, Asira suddenly blurted out, "Human doctor, do you have children who fall down?" The question caught him by surprise. "No, I don't have any children." "Oh." She seemed to think about this. "Torrin says all children fall and get hurt. He says it's normal." "Some accidents are normal," Jeff agreed, choosing his words with extreme care. "But it's an adult's job to make sure children are safe." Something flickered in her eyes, a brief spark of understanding. Then, with a devastatingly simple innocence, she lifted the hem of her tunic. "I have new marks on my back. Can your machine make them go away?" Jeff's breath caught in his throat. Fresh, ugly bruises mottled her blue skin, some in the distinct, sickening pattern of fingers. But it was the other marks that stole his breath, a network of pale, older scars that told a long, terrible story of cruelty. He swallowed, his professionalism the only thing keeping him upright. "The scanner just looks. We need different machines for fixing." He gently lowered her tunic. "Let's do the scan first, and then we'll talk about what can help." The new scan was even worse. It showed fresh fractures, laid directly on top of bones that had barely finished healing. He saw new internal bruising, consistent with blunt force trauma. "Asira, who brought you here today?" "I came by myself," she said, a small flicker of pride in her voice. "Torrin is busy with the others. He doesn't know I'm here." This was an opportunity, but it was also an incredible risk. If she went back with any sign of treatment, her abuser would know. Jeff made a decision. To hell with protocol. To hell with Harrington's orders. "Asira, I want you to meet someone special today. Another healer who is very good at helping with ... falls." Her eyes widened. "Another human?" "No, actually. A Lirani healer. Her name is Nara. She works with me sometimes." This was only partly true. Nara was a cultural liaison who sometimes consulted on Lirani patients. But she did have medical training. And more importantly, she had connections in the settlement that Jeff could never hope to get. "Will she be my friend too?" "Yes," Jeff said, his voice thick. "I think she'd like that very much." He sent an urgent, high-priority message to Nara. He knew he was crossing a line, one that could end his career. But as he looked at Asira's bruised face and her small, forced smile, he found that he just couldn't care. 20 minutes later, the door to the exam room hissed open. Jeff turned to greet Nara, and for a moment, his train of thought completely derailed. He had worked with her before, but always in formal, professional settings. Today, she was dressed in traditional Lirani robes that highlighted her tall, graceful form. Her skin was a deeper sapphire blue than Asira's, and her silver-white hair was woven in elaborate braids. Her large, luminescent eyes fixed on him with an unusual intensity. "Dr. Barrett," she said, her voice melodic but laced with concern. "Your message was urgent." Before he could reply, Asira gasped. "You're so pretty. Are you really a healer?" Nara's serious expression immediately softened as she turned to the child. "I have some knowledge of healing, yes." She walked toward Asira but then stopped dead. Her gaze sharpened, zeroing in on the bruises that peeked out from the collar of Asira's tunic. Her eyes snapped up to meet Jeff's, and a silent, terrible understanding passed between them. "Dr. Barrett," she said, her voice now dangerously quiet. "Perhaps we should discuss this. Patience. Treatment in private." As Nurse Caldwell distracted Asira with a holographic medical game, Jeff led Nara to his office, feeling as if he were about to hand her a live grenade. He closed the door, acutely aware of her presence. She had a faint, pleasant scent, like cinnamon in rain. "I have to apologize for pulling you in like this," he began. I didn't know who else to call." "No apology is necessary, Doctor," Nara said, her luminous eyes studying him. "In fact, your message was a fortuitous event." "Jeff, please," he said. "Jeff," she repeated, testing the name. "I have been conducting my own surveillance of Torrin's orphanage for almost 6 months." He stared at her, stunned. "You have?" She moved to the window, her gaze distant. "I work with a small, private group of Lirani. We suspect Torrin is involved in something far more sinister than simple abuse. Worse? How could it possibly be worse?" Nara turned to face him, her expression grim. "We are convinced he is trafficking children." Jeff felt the blood abandon his face, leaving him cold. "Trafficking? To who?" "Various clients. None of them pleasant." She hesitated. "There are wealthy Vexari who harbor ... appetites ... that are forbidden in most civilized systems. Lirani children," she added, her voice full of distaste, "are prized for their unique resilience. The Vexari, a reptilian species known for their cold logic and utter lacks of empathy." "That's monstrous," Jeff whispered. "Yes," Nara's eyes flashed. "And yet, Torrin operates openly. He is protected by officials in both the Lirani and the colonial governments, so the authorities are useless. Worse, some are complicit. Others are just afraid." Jeff ran a hand through his hair. "What about Asira? Is she—" "Almost certainly," Nara said, her voice clinical, though her hands were clenched at her sides. "The pattern of abuse suggests she is. Being ... conditioned, broken, the bruises she has today were likely her punishment for daring to visit you. Yesterday, the thought of that bright little girl being groomed. For such a fate made Jeff feel physically ill. We have to get her out of there, now." "It is not so simple," Nara cautioned. "If we take one child, Torrin will vanish. He'll take the others, and we will never find them. We need evidence. We need to destroy his entire operation." Their eyes met, a shared resolve forging a bond between them. "What do you need?" he asked. Nara stepped closer. "We've tried to infiltrate his network, but as Lirani, we are too easily recognized. You, however," her gaze moved over his human features, "you could pose as a potential client. Me?" The idea was repulsive. "You want me to pretend to be a monster?" "Not explicitly. Torrin provides many services. Some clients are just looking for exotic companions." She saw the disgust on his face, and her expression softened. I know it is distasteful, but you are an outsider. You have military credentials, which suggests both money and a need for discretion. Jeff began to pace. Even if I did, how would I even make contact? There is an establishment. The Azure Mist. Torin uses it to meet new clients. With the right introduction, you could get his attention. And who makes this introduction? A small, sad smile touched Nara's lips. I do, in a different capacity. The implication was clear. That would be incredibly dangerous for you, Jeff said. I have been in danger before. She moved closer, so close he could feel the warmth radiating from her. The only question is, are you willing to take this risk? For Asera? For the others? Jeff thought of Asera's smile, her hidden scars, and her rehearsed, pathetic lie about falling down the stairs. He thought of his career, his oath, and Harrington's direct order. He met Nara's gaze. Yes, he said. Tell me what I have to do.